Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 16 of the Merry Christmas Ornament tutorial. This is the Merry Christmas ornament that we are making. It is so cute and colorful. And today we're going to be making the unit called Top Lights A. There are 5 different versions of this Top Lights unit. So today we'll do the first one, and then tomorrow we'll do B, which is the second one, and so on until we finish all 5. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 15 in this series yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those videos listed down below in the description. That way when you finish this one, you can go back and watch those. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque black, dyed silver lined red, purple lined crystal, silver lined green, and silver lined light blue. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to call this black, red, purple, green, and blue. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color crystal, and I use the 4-pound thread. You could also use a 6-pound thread if that's what you like. And then I like to use a size 10 beading needle. If you only have a size 11 or a size 12, that would work too. For implements, I like to use my long nose pliers to hold on to my thread at the end of the video. And then I cut my thread with scissors. And then I'll be using the fire method to end the tail today. So let's thread our needle with 3 feet of thread and then we can get started. So I have threaded my needle and now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads. Let's pick up 1 black, 1 red, and 1 black. Then I'm going to take these 3 beads and I'm going to pull them down to the bottom of my thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now let's tie a square knot. Let's cross over on top and then pull our tail through. And then we'll cross over on top again and pull the tail through. So you have 2 loops. I'm going to put my 2 fingers in the lower loop, the one that has the beads in it, and then I'm going to tug on the tail thread and the long thread until that top loop turns into a knot. Now, I'm not going to touch it to the flame, but I'm going to get this tip really, really close to the flame so that it melts. And it turns it into this little teensy knot. Now I'm going to keep my fingers in the loop while I'm tugging on the long thread and twisting the loop at the same time until that knot that we just created at the tip meets the long thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull that knot all the way down to those 3 beads. And it turns the beads into this little triangle, and that completes row number 1. Now our knot is kind of right in between those 2 beads. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tug it to one side so that it looks like the knot is coming out of this bead, and it looks like the thread's coming out of that bead also. So now we're ready to pick up 2 more black beads. And it looks like we're coming out of this bead, so let's sew through the next bead, the one that it doesn't look like the thread's coming out of. Then make sure that you're getting your beads to sit right on top of the ones that are below it. I like to call those lower ones buddy beads. So our new beads are sitting on top of their buddy beads. Now let's pick up one black and one red bead. And we're coming out of the black bead right here. Let's sew through the red bead. Once again, making sure that those new beads sit right on top of their buddies. And let's pick up one red and one black bead. Now we're coming out of this bead, let's sew through the next, and let's also sew through the buddy bead, the one that's right below it. And when we're sewing through two beads like this, that means that we're stepping up to start the next row, and our thread is now in position to start that next row. So now we have completed row number 2, and we get to start row number 3. Let's start by picking up 2 black beads and sew through the next. And now let's pick up 1 black bead, and we're coming out of this second bead right here. If you'll notice, the next bead is set downward a little bit. We're going to skip that downward bead, and we're going to sew through the one that's poking up. I'm going to call that our up bead. So we're always going to be sewing through the up beads, never sewing through the down beads. Let's pick up 1 black and 1 green this time, and sew through the next. Now let's pick up 1 red and skip the down bead and sew through the up bead. Now we'll pick up 2 black beads and sew through the next. Then pick up 1 black bead, skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through the up bead, and we're going to sew through its buddy. So those are the last 2 beads, which means we have completed this row, and now we get to start row number 4. Let's start by picking up 2 black beads and sew through the next. Then 1 black and sew through the up. 1 black and sew through the up. 1 black and 1 green and sew through the next. 1 red and sew through the up, and 1 red and sew through the up. 2 black and sew through the next. 1 black and sew through the up, and 1 black and sewing through those last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 5. Let's start by picking up 2 black beads then 1 black bead, 1 black, 1 black, 2 green, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black, and sew through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 6. Let's start by picking up 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black, sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 7. Let's start with 2 green beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 purple, and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And this is actually the top of our triangle because this unit is closest to the, what is it, the little, oh, what's it called? The cap of the ornament. So it's just a little shorter than the rest of the units in this project. So because this is the top, what we're going to do is we're just going to sew through the next bead without adding any more. And now we get to start adding beads down the side, and this will be the beginning of row number 8. So let's start with 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 purple, 1 purple and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green, 1 green and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, and 1 blue. Now we're up at the top of our triangle again, and so what we're going to do this time to start row number 9 is we're going to change directions and sew in this direction. So what I like to do, because I'm very right-handed, is just turn my triangle over and I kind of poke that dent in. If you're creating a dent while you're making this triangle, then that's totally normal. If you're not, that's okay too. You just want it to be tight enough that you're not seeing thread, right? So now let's start row number 9 with 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, one black and one green, one green, one green, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, two black beads, one purple, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, and one green. And if you notice, there's no up bead to sew through now that we've reached the top of our triangle. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to sew down that green bead that's on the top. And then we're going to kind of just manipulate our bead so that it sits where it's supposed to, just like that. Now we have to turn our thread around. So let's sew down the black bead that's right below the bead that we're coming out of. And then we will change directions and we will sew up the bead right next to the one we're coming out of. Now let's sew up that green bead and down the bead that we just added. And now we can continue to sew around starting row 10. But just like I did before, because I'm so right-handed, I just like to sew around going downwards. So I'm going to turn my triangle over, and now I get to sew down this side. Alrighty, so starting row number 10 with one green, one black, one black, one black, one black, oops, one purple, one purple, two black beads, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 green and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, and 1 blue. Now we are at the top of our triangle again, so let's flip it over. And now we can start adding beads down this side, starting row 11. Let's start with 1 blue bead, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 green beads, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 purple, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, and 1 black. And once again, we are up at the top and we don't have an up bead to sew through. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew down the bead that's on the top and then manipulate our little new bead to sit where it's supposed to. And now sew down the bead that's right below the one we're coming out of. Then, switching directions, we're going to sew up the bead right next to that one. and then up that middle bead on the top, and then down the bead that we just added. Now we're going to turn our triangle over, and now we can continue sewing down this side, starting row number 12. Let's start with one black, one green, one black, one black, one black, one green, one black, one black, two black beads, one black, 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 one green, one black, one black, one black and one green, one black, one black, one black, one black, one black, one green, one black, and one blue. Now we have reached the top of our triangle and we've completed our 12 rows. So what I'm going to do is turn it over, and now we get to start adding our connection beads. If this is the first triangle that you've done with me, the connection beads are the beads that are on some of the sides, and then sometimes they're not on the sides at all. And that is just so that we can connect our units together and then complete the project and surround the whole ornament. So in order to do that, we need, on this particular unit, we need connection beads down this side. We need connection beads on the bottom, but we don't need any connection beads on this side. So what we'll do is we'll start going down this side, starting with one black, 1 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 black, and 1 black. Now we're at the corner at the bottom, so what we're going to do is cap this corner with 1 black bead, turning the corner into a little point, and now we're going to add connection beads along the bottom. These are also all black, but I'll call them out for you one by one. 1 black, 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 1 black. And now we're at the corner again. So let's cap this corner with 1 black bead. And now let's turn our unit over. And without adding any more beads, I'm going to sew up 6 beads. And I'm going to follow the quadrant line right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now what I'm going to do is what I call a zigzag so that we can secure this last bead so it doesn't get loose. We're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And then we'll sew up the bead right next to that one. That zigzag just makes this bead a little more secure. So let's sew up 2 beads, 1 and 2. And just to make it extra secure, let's do another zigzag. So we're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And then sew up the bead right next to that one. Then we'll sew up 2 more rows, 1 and 2. And I feel that these beads are super secure now. They're not going to get loose. So let's cut our thread. Holding on to the thread with our long nose pliers and then getting the scissors as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead, just snip off the thread. And now you've completed your unit. This is unit A in the top lights, and we only need 1 of these, so I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.